So what I want to talk about next is the mission planning process, and I've had the opportunity to engage in a mission process with a number of congregations, and it's always an exciting morning or afternoon. Reverend Amy Walter Peterson, who is with the Evangelical Church of America, um, says that the process, more so than the product, justifies good mission planning, that the process itself can be as valuable, if not more valuable, than the product. And so she cites various components of the mission planning process. And the first is that mission planning involves listening to each other, listening to the community outside your doors, and listening to what our Unitarian Universalist faith tells us. Second component is mission planning is relational, and it fosters partnerships. By participating in a shared mission planning process, we strengthen our relationships with each other. We form bonds that keep us connected in good times and bad. Mission planning is affirming. It requires us to focus on the assets, strengths, resources, and opportunities that our congregations provide. It reminds us why we love this faith. The mission planning process pays attention to context. It takes into account the cultural realities of the congregation, the surrounding community, and the wider world. It is mindful of the socioeconomic, ethnic, specific, and multicultural dynamics of the congregation setting. Mission planning is a shared journey. And while a small group may take a more active role in finalizing the mission, the entire congregation participates in the process and is engaged through conversation, discernment, and support, and shares a commitment to the actions that emerge from the planning process. And finally, mission planning is ongoing. A mission is not static. It is subject to the changing dynamics of the spiritual community, shifts in neighborhood, or global trends. Knowing this makes us ever mindful of the need to revisit the mission to ensure its relevance, applicability, and acceptance. And we recommend that every 2 to 3 years, a congregation revisit its mission to make sure that it speaks to what the congregation wants to be. So let me talk about a mission statement from Dilbert. The boss says, Wally, your status report is just a bunch of buzzwords strung together. Wally says, I've been giving you that same status report every week for 11 years. 5 years ago, you adopted it as our mission statement. Many congregations create a mission statement that is simply a bunch of buzzwords strung together. It needs to be more than that. Mission statements are not about wordsmithing. And for those of you that remember Mad Libs, which I used to play all the time when I was a kid, doing a mission statement is not completing blanks. And in this one person says quality, and the other person said, no, we've already used that. And yet I know that in many congregations, the process of creating a mission becomes wordsmithing. What are the words that we can put in that will fit just right and that will not offend anyone? So how does your mission statement stack up? Tom Beloit says that mission statements need to be memorable. The goal should be that if someone visits your church once, he or she should be able to say what it is when asked on the way out to the parking lot. Now, granted, that may be a little ambitious, but you get the idea. Dan Pollotta said mission statements yearn, cry, are unequivocal, and they are the product of the soul. And again, Tom Beloit wrote, a mission statement is not the end of a conversation, but the beginning of one. It is an opportunity to engage in rich discussions and deliberations about what the mission really means. Often mission statements get in the way of mission. Again, Dan Pollotta wrote, a person or organization on a mission is inspiring. A mission statement is an abstraction. The statement is not the source of the mission. The commitment is the source of the mission. The statement is merely the byproduct of the commitment. And David Owen O'Quill, again, identifies three kinds of false missions. The first is mission drift, where the congregation just goes through the motions of congregational life, and members of the congregation either never learned what the mission was or have forgotten what the mission is. So the mission has no impact, no bearing on the congregation. Then there's a competing mission. When issues in conflict continue to come up, it may be due to a competing mission. So the congregation is at odds all the time over what programming the congregation should engage in, for example, or how available funds should be spent. This usually occurs because the mission is vague or tries to be all-encompassing so that the leaders are unable to discern what is most important. And then thirdly, there's the fantasy mission, with words like peace and justice for all. Congregations can only solve their corner of the world. They can't change the entire world. And a mission that tries to do too much or to stand for everything tends to stand for nothing. So here is what I think of the problem with mission statements. They're too darn long. They're too hard to remember. They're too general. Statements that try to cover everything start to sound like they're committed to nothing. They're filled with implied contradictions. For example, joys and sorrows, or intellectual inquiry and spiritual understanding. It implies that members do not share a common purpose. They contain actionless verbs like aspire, be, respect, share, foster, instead of powerful verbs that get right at the action. They're tentative with words like try or strive. And as Yoda said, do or not do. There is no try. And they contain what I call opt-out clauses. For example, respects individual differences and beliefs. It's added on in order to make sure that no one feels left out. So here's our mission statement, but we also respect individual differences and beliefs, just in case you don't believe in our mission. A mission statement should say, here is why we exist, not here is why we exist, but you should feel free to disagree. I'd like to give you a few examples of what I think are good and not so good mission statements. And then again, pause and get your reaction to this. So the next few ones are mission statements that I think don't meet the criteria for a good mission statement. The UU Congregation of South County is a welcoming, loving, spiritual community practicing Unitarian Universalist principles. We offer a safe, respectful environment for personal and spiritual growth for children and adults. The UUCSC serves as a resource for social and environmental action and peace. So first of all, this is way too long. No one's going to remember it. It offers tentative words like offer and serves instead of the UUCSC serves as. The UUSC is a resource. Not that I like that sentence anyway, but that's an example. What does it mean to serve as a resource? It's vague. Why not say we engage in social and environmental action and peace initiatives? It also sounds like something that you would see in a brochure describing what the congregation does. Here's another one. The UU Fellowship of Athens, Georgia is a caring congregation of diverse peoples, ages, backgrounds, and beliefs. Our purpose is to support our members and to commit deeply to our shared Unitarian Universalist principles by worshiping, playing, and exploring life's meaning together, thus promoting love and justice in our larger community and the world. If this isn't wordsmithing, I don't know what is. It's way too long. It's a run-on sentence. It opts out by focusing on diversity of beliefs, which means essentially you can say or do whatever you want. It's vague. Who is supporting our members? Our purpose is to support our members. Well, who is supporting our members? And what does it mean to support our members? You have extraneous clauses like to commit deeply to our shared UU principles. Again, any mission statement that includes a reference to UU principles is really not saying anything. If I'm a visitor, if I go on a website and I look at this mission statement and I don't know anything about Unitarian Universalists, then telling me that you commit deeply to our shared Unitarian Universalist principles is telling me exactly nothing. So why not skip this and just say we worship, play, and explore life's meaning together? And it's also clearly focused inward. We promote love and justice in the world by being together. I'm not sure how one promotes love and justice in the larger community and the world by being together. So there's an implied contradiction there. The mission of the UU Fellowship of Clemson is to build and sustain a welcoming, caring, inclusive community for all that. You could tell this is way too long. I'm not even going to read the whole thing. But there's implied contradiction. A journey of faith informed by reason. It also tries to be all things to all people. So it includes all the words that probably anybody in the congregation wanted to include. It has actionless verbs and tentative words like dedicated, provides, call upon, striving. And overall, it feels like it was wordsmithed in order to satisfy everyone. Dedicated to peace and celebration, integrity, service, and joy. Again, these are words that don't generally go together unless you're trying to make sure that no one is offended because their pet word was left out. Here are a few examples of what I think are really powerful, meaningful, memorable mission statements. The First Unitarian Church of Rochester, creating connection by listening to our deepest selves, opening to life's gifts, and serving needs greater than our own every day. And really good mission statements are able to pull out three words that then become a brand. So for Rochester, it's listen, open, and serve. Here's another one. The first the UU Congregation of Lakeland, Florida. Uniting in diversity, advocating for justice and love. Pretty short, granted, but boy, it's pretty easy to understand and to remember. The First UU Fellowship of Hunterdon County in Baptisttown, New Jersey. Nurturing spiritual journeys, expanding social justice. That is what they're all about. They are really into social justice in the wider community. And that's their identity, and that's their core purpose for being. The First UU Church of San Diego, to create community, to nurture spiritual growth, and to act on our values to help heal the world. Pretty clear. Pretty simple, pretty powerful, pretty memorable. And Channing Memorial Church, this was a church I had an opportunity to work with in Ellicott City, Maryland. Our mission is to invite seekers into community, connect souls in mystery and wonder, and ignite compassion into action. Isn't that wonderful? Invite seekers into community, connect souls in mystery and wonder, and ignite compassion into action. I love that third phrase, ignite compassion into action. Live our faith, put our values into action. So here's the test of a good mission statement. It's to determine if it's inspiring, exciting, clear, true, and engaging. And as you read through the mission statement, it needs to answer the following questions. Is it you? Is it the congregation? Is it true? Does it make sense? Is it inspiring? Does it excite you? Does it excite others who read it? And the only way you'll know is by asking. And the last question that I find really compelling, would you be willing to have your congregational life be about this and only this? Because that's the commitment you make when you take on a dynamic, powerful mission. Let me just share with you a couple of more slides related to this, and then ask you to weigh in. My colleague Doug Zelenski, who works in the Mass Bay District, wrote a lot about the purpose of religion, the purpose of a mission. And he says more fundamental than a congregation's mission statement, vision, covenant, values, strategic plan, goals, objectives, programs, and outcomes is its purpose. It is agreement and clarity about the fundamental purpose of a religious community that enables members to breathe vitality into all other aspects of congregational governance, programming, and life. So a mission helps you to be clear about what is the fundamental purpose of your religious community. And just for your information, Doug asks four really important questions, and I've used these questions as part of the missioning process when I've been invited to facilitate in a congregation. What do you believe is the fundamental purpose of religion? What is your current calling as a Unitarian Universalist? How has your Unitarian Universalist faith transformed you, and how can it transform the world? And how will you know if you are being the best Unitarian Universalist you can be? And these questions will lead into the third and last part of my presentation this evening, and that's the creation of a personal mission statement. But let me just share one more quote from Doug before I pause. Doug says, inspiring mission statements don't make people purposeful. Purpose-filled people create inspired mission statements. And I just love that quote. So I'm going to unmute you and invite you to ask any questions or share any thoughts or responses that you might have to what I just talked about. So what I want to talk to you about lastly is the notion of creating a personal mission statement. And again, I've gone through this process with congregations. I'm going to take you through the process, but I'm not going to ask you to actually participate tonight. But it might be something that you may want to do subsequent to our time together. Stephen Covey, wrote, your mission statement becomes your constitution, the solid expression of your vision and values. It allows you to connect with your own unique purpose and the profound satisfaction that comes from fulfilling it. So it's not enough, I think, to just have a congregational mission. I think that our leaders need to have their own personal mission for how they will act and what they want to do to make a difference in the congregation. So here's the process. I ask people to first write their legacy. Imagine that the day comes when you have to leave your congregation. It is years and years and years in the future, but maybe you're moving to another part of the country and it's time to leave. The congregation decides to hold a giant banquet in your honor to thank you for your years of service. The minister agrees to read some remarks about you, but due to time constraints, the minister is asking you to write it. Specifically, you're being asked to write your legacy, not your obituary, your legacy. What would you say? Consider all the questions that you see and include them in your essay. So how do you want to be remembered? What have you done as a UU that you're most proud of? What have you received from your UU experience that has been most significant? The legacy can be as long or as short as you want, but this is the opportunity for you to speak with pride about what you have left to the congregation after your many years of service to them. So that's what I say to the participants, and then I allow people about 15 to 20 minutes to complete the task. Some people are reticent because they don't want to toot their own horn, but I ask them to indulge me in the exercise, and most people jump into it. When everyone is done, then I tell them that the day has come for the banquet and the congregation is assembled. There are thousands and thousands of people that have come to honor you. But the minister, lo and behold, has come down with laryngitis. And so you have to read the legacy yourself. And then what I do is ask people to rise one at a time and read their legacy. And after they do, the rest of the group responds with wild applause. And I find that process to be wonderful. It's amazing how eloquent people are when they think about how they want to be remembered. So that's the first step in the process. And then I take people to the step two. I tell them that every mission requires action and action words or verbs. So I asked them to read their legacy again to themselves and select the 3 verbs or action words that most inspire them from what they have written. And there are at least 3 action words that are right there in their legacy. I can hear them as people share their legacy. So I give them a few minutes to do that. I don't ask them to share the verbs with the rest of the group, but I ask them to write down the 3 verbs or action words that come out of their legacy. Step 3, then I talk about values. And I point out that Gandhi spoke of absolute values or universal principles that guide our conduct. His were truth and nonviolence. So I ask people to consider, what are your absolute values? Or to use the language we've been using this evening, what are your core values? And I ask them again to look to their legacy that they just wrote for the answers. I remind them that a value is not something we do, it is who we are. So if someone wants to cite being a good listener as one of their values, I point out to them that being a good listener is what they do, but what is the value that makes them a good listener? It might be compassion, caring, involvement, empathy. So I ask people to go deeper. And then I ask them to share the values, the 3 values that they've come up with the group. So they've written their legacy, they've come up with 3 action words, and they've come up with 3 or so values. And then the final step, in order to create a strong mission statement, it's important to have a sense of clarity on whom you really want to serve, inspire, learn from, and impact in a positive way as a leader in the congregation. So I ask the group, in your leadership role, consider what it is that you're passionate about. Who or what are you committed to serving? What are the most important connections that you make? So this exercise, this part of the exercise, helps participants to focus on the outcome. To what end will adherence to their mission prove fruitful? So one could be committed to serving members of the congregation, or serving the minister, or serving Unitarian Universalism in general. They could be committed to growing the church, to deepening the faith, to creating other strong and competent leaders. This could go in a number of different ways, but I asked them to wrestle with it and see what they come up with. But again, this part, people are not asked to share. And then I try to wrap it up or put it all together. Now that they have identified their actions, their values, and their passions, I asked them to pull it all together into a mission statement, because I believe that a personal mission statement is the sum of those 3 components: verbs or action words, values, and cause. And then once they've come up with a mission, I asked them to take the same task that one would take in assessing a congregational mission. Is it you? Is it true? Does it make sense? Is it inspiring? Does it excite you? Does it excite others? And would you be willing to have your congregational life be about this and only this? If I've done my facilitation well and the group has worked hard, by the end of this session, people have a mission statement that they're ready to share with the rest of the group. And that's how the process works. And people have told me that it is a very enlightening and exciting process to go through. W. Clement Stone wrote, "When you discover your mission, you will feel its demand. It will fill you with enthusiasm and a burning desire to get to work on it." So the process of mission and purpose in our congregation begins and ends with our own personal mission for making a difference in the life of the congregation and in our Unitarian Universalist faith.